Our next fic on the list, which we're gonna shuffle back here now that Anna's here, because I wanted her to read one of the parts here, is one of mine. It is a story called A Delightful Abattoir. It is a hive swap fic set a couple of sweeps after the time period of Friendsim, although the events of Friendsim did not occur. It has focuses on adults, hive swap trolls. It is basically the story of the Alternian Revolution. It has many of the Friendsim characters in it. It has many different ships. It's a long work. It's a like 500-page novel basically. Um, and we're going to read chapter 2. We will probably not be reading beyond chapter 2 on these streams because it does get into some content that's a little
What is
borderline
it?
for what we
Where do I have
typically
to
read.
click on it?
But if you're interested, I would highly recommend that you read the rest of it. I had a lot of fun writing it, and so far I've gotten some good feedback for people that are reading it. So we are going to read chapter 2. I will say right off the bat, this chapter does deal with relationship abuse, including implications of sexual coercion and assault, and mentions of alcohol abuse. So if any of those are triggers for you, it might be a very unpleasant experience, and I would recommend that you duck out for maybe the next 20 or so minutes. Um, this is going to have a narrator who I will read, Chixie, who I'd like Anna to read if she wouldn't mind.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Malik, a few lines of Malik.
Ooh, I'll take Mala.
You got it. We have a Sarava. Hold
Can
on.
I be Sarava?
Yes, you can be Sarava.
Thank
And
you.
we have a Zebruh.
I want to play it.
Zebra.
Zebra.
Absolutely.
What's
Zebra.
that?
Zebra. About
Stinky,
that.
stinky zebra man.
Do we?
Yeah.
Did we have a volunteer for
Thank you,
that?
Pastor.
Several people were talking at once.
Me.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so we've got Sarava, Zebra, Chixie narrator, and Malik, and I believe that is it. So yeah, chapter 2. The first chapter, for those who didn't read, was Skyla, who is a recruit in the Alternian army, almost gets blown up when the barracks that she is in is attacked by as of yet unknown forces. So the first night, the city of Everdim, South Alternia. 0345 hours local time, 1845 hours Alternian Universal Time. Chixie Roximr pulled herself up off the pile in her apartment, where she'd fallen asleep the night before. She went slowly, carefully, because she wasn't the only one there. Zebra Kodak was still snoring next to where she'd been sleeping, and the last thing she wanted to do was wake him up. If she woke him up, she'd have to talk to him. She didn't want to talk to him if she could help it. She didn't want to... She looked around for the bottle she'd had the night before. There was a certain balance to it, drinking just enough to be able to tolerate him, but not so much that she forgot herself. Not too much. Then she'd start telling him how she felt. With a practiced smoothness, she slid away from his outstretched hand. A quick moment of panic when she brushed it, but then he grunted and turned over and snored even louder. He'd had more to drink than she did yesterday.
Bastard.
She muttered quietly to herself. Her foot hit an empty plastic bottle on the floor. It still smelled faintly of alcohol. So she wasn't going to be able to take the edge off the hangover that was about to hit her. That was fine. It was all fine.
Stupid bastard drank till he passed out again.
At least he'd been unconscious before he had the chance to do anything really bad. She didn't think, anyway. It always felt like a chore, frequently felt disgusting, and sometimes felt downright unsafe. There were so many reasons not to keep doing this, but at least one major reason to do it. From across the room, Chixie heard something buzzing softly, a faint trace of noise that seemed to be coming from the bathroom. As quickly as she could without making noise, she glided into the bathroom and grabbed the palm husk from the counter. For a moment, her blood pressure jumped in her chest, because if Zebra saw the name on the screen, he would have questions that she didn't feel like answering. Those questions would lead to accusations that she didn't want to answer for, and those accusations would lead to an apology that she didn't want to give, and ways of making up that she didn't want anything to do with. She grabbed the palm husk and slowly closed the door, leaning heavily up against it. Snakebites began chatting with Lyrical Firebrand at 0347 hours Alternian Southern Time.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to say the universal time.
No,
Hey, you need to fucking pick up your goddamn palm husk. This is serious.
What do you want? I just got up. Got a lot on my mind right now.
I'm not fucking around with you. I need you to listen, and I need you to start packing a bag right fucking now.
Chixie leaned her head back and stared up at the ceiling, groaning softly to herself. Whatever it was, she wasn't ready for it. She'd barely been ready for it when she first talked to Malik a sweep ago, when she first became involved in something that had started mundanely enough, but had become downright treasonous. Sitting down on the load gaper, she bent over and clutched her head in her hands, running fingers absently down her horns, playing with the hair that trailed down on her shoulders, finally hugging the opposite arm up tight against her chest.
I don't have time for this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for any of this.
Lyrical Firebrand began chatting with Snakebites at 0352 hours Alternian Southern Time.
Look, I know you mean well, but I've got a way out. I've got someone who can help.
What, you mean that stupid fucker you're sleeping with? What did he promise you anyway? Because I know for a fact he is not able to deliver.
You don't know that. This is important to me. Why can't you respect that, Malik?
Why'd you use my fucking name? This is not a secure line. I just need you to get to the meeting spot AS fucking P. This is really fucking goddamn important.
I'll get to it when I can. Don't make me repeat myself, okay?
Before she shut down the palm husk, Chixie made sure to delete every trace of the messages between her and Malik. Nothing that they said was, in and of itself, enough, but the concepts they were implying could get them both killed. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad. She turned her head, and even though the door was there, she could see him lying there, could still feel his hands on her. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. There was a knock at the bathroom door, and Chixie jumped and almost fell off the load gaper.
What's going on in there, babe?
Zebruh's voice was still thick with the slur of too much alcohol from the night before. Chixie cringed and shifted on the load gaper.
Nothing. I just had to use the gaper.
She fought to keep the nervous energy out of her tone.
Ooze didn't agree with me.
Zebruh laughed. Chixie hated the way he laughed.
Seems like plenty agreed with you last night, babe.
She forced a nervous laugh.
Yeah, seriously.
Inside, she forced back the retching and the need to scream, the urge to break down the door and take the palm husk and beat the shit out of him with it, to keep hitting him until he was blue and bleeding and begging for mercy on the floor. She might even be able to pull it off, but she would never get away with it.
Hurry the fuck up, yeah?
Zebruh's voice dropped and took on a tone that spoke faintly of menace. He wasn't asking.
I got a shit and you're taking up the gaper.
Chixie made a big show of flushing and running the water in the sink, pretending to wash her hands. She ran them under the water. She knew he'd notice if her hands weren't wet. She stared hard at the reflection in the grimy mirror, the haggard eyes staring back at her behind a scared expression, the expression of someone always ready to run, but never able to.
You done yet?
Zebruh's voice was taking on a tone of menace. Without waiting for the next evolution of it, Chixie quickly shut off the water and shook her hands dry before opening the door.
Took you long enough.
He said slowly, peering down at her hands.
Give me some fucking space.
Of course he wants space right now. Couldn't give me space last night.
And she wanted to go back in the bathroom and run the water as hot as it would go and scrub until she bled.
Hey, I've got to go out in a bit. Is that okay?
Her voice was shaking as she asked. Zebruh snorted as he pushed past her into the bathroom.
I guess. Get back there before it's too late in the night. We gotta go over your set before tomorrow's daybreak performance. Don't want to let the audience down. You know, this kind of thing could make a big difference in getting a deferral. Big difference, babe.
He smiled at her, showing his top fangs. She hated that smile. The Diver, City of Everdem, South Alternia, 0512 local time, 2012 Alternian Universal Time. The diver was, at least on the surface, a shitty bar buried at the bottom of a flight of grungy stairs in one of the worst rust neighborhoods in Everdem. Getting there without a vehicle was tricky. The transit didn't run there, and she ended up walking most of the way. By the time she arrived, she was exhausted from walking and ready to be done with whatever stupid bullshit Malik had planned. Down that flight of stairs she'd only been down once before. This wasn't the kind of place that Zebruh typically tried to book her. It wasn't really the kind of place that actually booked anyone. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a door, thick and reinforced with metal banding. She knocked. The pattern was specific, but Malik had made sure she knew the precise rhythm. A small window in the door slid open. A single eye stared at her.
The fuck are you?
Even if she hadn't met them before, Chixie knew Sarava Hermod from their music, and the outsized negative attention they'd managed to attract from the High Bloods.
Get the fuck out of here.
They went to close the window, and Chixie sighed.
You don't know who I am?
A slight pause.
I don't know who you are. Sorry.
The words were precisely measured this time. Less casual. Chixie sighed again and said the last part. Something she'd memorized.
No one knows the signless.
Fuck.
Sarava said.
Thought I'd be able to get you out of here. Fuck.
From inside, Chixie heard a commotion and saw Sarava turn.
I was just messing with her. I know who she is. We fucking performed together.
With a heavy click, the deadbolt in the door slid back and the door opened, the widening maw of the diver yawning in front of her. A moment of hesitation, and Chixie thought that she could turn back, could go back and return to the life that she had. It wasn't something she liked, but it was something she was able to tolerate. Barely. With some assistance from her best chemical friends. One step forward, and she was across the threshold. Sarava motioned impatiently, begging her to get in before someone saw her, an informant or a surveillance drone. Chixie glared at them as she walked past.
I don't have time for this shit, Sarava. Fuck you.
She flipped them an obscene gesture, and they shrugged.
Whatever.
They said, closing the door tightly and bolting it again before returning to a small metal stool set up by the door. Leaning up against the wall, they pulled out their vaporizer and took a long draw.
Malik's in the back if you want to see what's jammed up his nook. He didn't tell me shit.
She shrugged and walked toward the back of the diver, past a dilapidated bar surrounded by moldering chairs. A barren stage down at the end. A stage that hadn't seen anyone performing since Chixie was a wiggler. But the point wasn't to be a music venue or a place to drink your sorrows away. It served another purpose now, one that Chixie wasn't sure she wanted anything to do with. One that she wasn't sure she could walk away from.
Feeling trapped all around lately.
The room in the back was humming with the sound of computers and cooling fans all running in tandem. A single table sat in the middle, and at that table sat Malik Adilov. His hands were up at the sides of his face, quickly running over the spot where his hair was shaved close in a pattern born of nervous energy. As soon as he heard Chixie walking in, he looked up sharply. His face quickly ran the gamut from terrified to glad to worried. His brow furrowed.
You weren't followed?
Glaring at him, Chixie shook her head.
Why the fuck would I be followed? I'm a singer, Malik, not some revolutionary fighter or whatever.
Stop calling me by name.
He hissed.
Call me Snakebite if you need to refer to me at all. And stop making such dangerous assumptions about what you've gotten yourself into.
Fucking need this.
Chixie turned to walk back out, her shoulders drooping.
Zebra's got a plan for me. I don't need this shit anymore.
What's his plan? To get you a deferral for service? That he'll put in a word with someone near the top who can get you out of it? That he's got high blood friends?
Chixie gritted her teeth and clenched her hands at her side.
Fuck you! You don't know what you're talking about.
It was a lie. Every word of it was a lie. She knew in her heart that Zebruh was lying. There wasn't any deferral of service, and there weren't any high blood friends he could call on. He'd be fine. An indigo blood able to coast by on some Imperial Support Services project or other. But her? She'd end up in the army or in some kind of fleet support role. If she was lucky, maybe some kind of backwater post for the rest of her life.
Fine.
She said.
What the hell is it, Malik?
She saw him grimace, but he didn't say anything about it. Instead, he turned the computer screen that was in front of him around.
This happened a couple hours ago, right before I messaged you.
She leaned in and looked at the screen. On it, she could see satellite images of somewhere. It didn't mean anything to her, and she grunted angrily at Malik.
Is this some kind of test or something? You vetting me to make sure I haven't turned Imperial since we last talked?
She felt a hot flush of anger behind her cheeks.
No, this is a satellite imagery from the Southern Regional Training Command. Where those giant craters are, there used to be barracks. And a couple of support buildings, I suppose, but now they're just a bunch of holes in the ground.
Somewhere inside Chixie's chest, something slipped loose, and she started to feel faint. This was really, actually happening. She'd started talking to Malik when she was first getting into protest music, and she'd stayed on the side of things that the Empire wouldn't crack down too hard on. Out of cowardice? Out of lack of experience? Lack of opportunity? She wasn't even sure sometimes. Sometimes she just wanted to crawl into a bottle and disappear. Wanted more than anything to escape. But this?
Someone fired the first shot of the rebellion,
Malik said.
and we don't know who.
What the fuck does that mean?
Chixie stared at the computer screen, and the image began to take on a new, horrible meaning. How many trolls had died there? How many that had never even gone off-world yet? Did someone she knew meet their end in the charred black of the plains mud?
Malik?
He wasn't answering, just standing there looking terrified. And suddenly, Chixie realized something. That for all of his talk, for all of the work he put into his revolutionary ideas, for all of the time he spent gathering information, planning, or organizing, for all of that, he was still very new at this, and he wasn't prepared for what had just happened. Chixie looked around the room, at the computers lining the walls, and back toward the front doorway where Sarava sat and smoked quietly, waiting for more rebels to arrive, who probably never would.
He's no more ready than I am. Fuck.
Woo!
Ooh,
That was real good.
I love the world building.
Very lovely.
so
Yeah,
that
fucking
was
good,
very
and
nice.
I'm gonna read the whole thing probably after the stream is done.
Nice.
Absolutely.
You
feel
should
that.
definitely read the whole thing. And the whole sequel, too.
I've got like 4 fics in progress. I hate y'all for adding more to that list.
Wait, Abattoir already has a sequel?
It's
Yeah,
not done
Janaya-
yet, it's-
Janaya's like a shark. If she stops, she dies.
Good job, Janaya.
Yeah,
Sequel.
there's about 38,000 words of the sequel. It's 17
Jesus.
chapters right now, I think.
That's some real queen shit right there.
Jesus.
So, yeah, thank you. I really am having a good time reading that. And I appreciate the people that have been commenting on it as I've written it too. That was really cool.